All right, we're live here. We're talking about Chat GTP, generative AI, more specifically, and career planning. We thank you all for joining us. Laura and I are here ready to rock and roll and have a great session. You have any comments or questions or thoughts, don't hesitate to post those in. We'll be glad to answer your questions live as we talk about this great subject. Hello, Laura.
Hi, how's it going?
Very good, very good. Any thoughts on this subject before we jump into it? Anything you want to
Oh,
consider or what you've been thinking about as you plan to so dedicatedly plan to run this session?
yes, there's so many thoughts. It's hard to know where to start. I've spent a lot of time this year listening to the updates around this, and especially ever since Chat GPT 4 dropped back in March, which feels like a lot longer ago. There's just been so many developments to pay attention to, and I know that I'm kind of unique in that I have this um, time and bandwidth, I guess, to follow it. I know not everyone does, and so I think that's part of the reason that you and I wanted to come on and chat with people about it, because most people probably aren't quite up to speed as far as what I can tell from talking to folks. They know that there's something happening and it's important, but maybe haven't had a chance to experiment with it or understand really how it's impacting their jobs, their life, etc. So yeah, happy to dive in. Let's get started.
All right, good. So that's a really good point. There's so much going on. But starting off with this, I mean, one of the things that Laura and I talked about was that we wanted to make sure folks had a good understanding of AI versus generative AI. So we want to make sure that folks realize that generative AI is an offshoot of the world of AI, machine learning, and deep learning. So AI, generative AI specifically is a large language model technology that allows us to put together information from unstructured data and present it to us in a logical way that we've asked for it. It has been a big poof in the marketplace because it's allowed us to do what might take 3 or 4 hours of research and do it in a matter of seconds. I mean, think about it this way. When you look at going to Google or Bing or Yahoo or whatever your chat engine choice is, you have to put in some type of search criteria. And then when you put that search criteria in, you have to go ahead and dig through each article, think about it, process it, maybe cut one article, paste another article. You know, some of you probably have some cool mechanics that do that a little faster and better, but ultimately you have to spend the time researching. Well, now if you go into Chat GTP 4 and you ask it to do something, say write an article of X or tell me more about Y or tell me more about Z, it's going to actually present that information to you in a logical, well-written format. And then if you use a tool called Perplexity, it's actually going to present it to you in a logical, well-thought-out process, but it's also going to do it with references. So you can actually go back and check the references. So what we have here is we have this technology that enables us to work with unstructured data better than we've ever been able to work with before, and really cut back research and development time significantly and potentially automate some of the more repetitive tasks that we work on. And so that's the area when we get talking about this in more depth, we'll probably put that idea of repetitive tasks and researching over here in a side pocket. And now finished off with the rest of the AI conversation. This doesn't stop you from actually building a career in AI. AI in and of itself is really deep predictive analytics around algorithms that slowly and surely let the algorithm itself, the code itself, be able to adapt and learn a bit about what you're looking for, and thus provide you more and more specific or more granular information. And this world also ties directly into the IoT world, the Internet of Things world, because now we're creating more and more data points that we can utilize. So we're getting at points and getting data in places that we could never get data before, so that data can be searched. A great example of this is disk. This is like the Ring camera technology, the IP video technology. You capture that unstructured video technology. You can overlay that with some facial recognition software, and you can look at trends in who is coming around your location. You can distinguish between the post person, the mail person, repair people, and maybe someone that you don't want coming around your house. And the system can actually look at trends for when people are visiting your home or when they shouldn't be visiting your home, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But that area is where you're looking at the AI algorithms. You're looking at teaching the systems. In this world, it's deeply entrenched on the marketing side with marketing automation tools. It's deeply entrenched on the data side with a lot of data analytics tools that are now utilizing these technologies. And you can look at other tooling systems that are doing more of this capability or have been doing more of this capability. So when we talk about your career, what we want to say is that AI can morph into a lot of different ways. I mean, one is that you can become a professional who actually works on data projects. So you have to, not just data projects, but AI projects. You have to know what AI is, how it works, and you participate based on your role in a project to deploy AI somewhere, whether it's generative AI, machine learning, etc. Or you could be someone who builds a career maybe in actually teaching the AI systems. Maybe you'll do some prompt engineering work. Maybe you'll do some algorithm development work. And this ties into the data science world specifically. It also gets into the Google tooling side of the world where you have people who are training systems using the Google tool set. And then, of course, you want to look at, how can you use these tools, especially generative AI, to actually do your job and do it better. And so Laura and I will talk a little bit about that as well. And I'll pass it over to her since I babbled for about 5 minutes here. And before I pass it over to her, remember, any questions, comments, thoughts you have, don't hesitate. Laura's got a significant amount of marketing experience, creative marketing experience. She would never call herself a designer, but out pops Midjourney, out pops DALL-E, and some of these other tools. So Laura, tell me, in your mind, as you start seeing the marketing creative, marketing design side, design in general, how do you see that career pathing changing based on what you're seeing?
So my background has always been in startup marketing. So I've always been tasked with coming into startup as head of marketing and with the strategy, but also executing it. So very on. So I'm in the marketing automation tools. I'm in the back end of the website. I'm doing a lot of the actual work in addition to the strategy. So generative AI and specifically the large language models like ChatGPT-4 have really helped me in these type of roles because there's just so many different things you can do with it, starting with strategy work itself. You can prompt it to help you with the strategic planning. You can then prompt it to help you with the actual execution of something like an email campaign and actually writing copy for a landing page. And then you've got the image generating tools, like you mentioned, Midjourney, DALL-E, all those types of situations where you need a certain type of image, but you can't find it on stock image websites, or maybe it doesn't exist. That's what generative AI is great for. It's generating new creative content. And so the sky's the limit in that. So marketing is one of careers that absolutely is going to have a huge impact, already is having a huge impact. Right now, you can tell what's available right now already with the tools that have been released. And then a little bit later, also talk about what's coming down that we need to be preparing for, because it's evolving. So I think that's one of the key points, that the speed at which things are changing is something to pay attention to. I mean, we wouldn't have a year ago have probably anticipated what our year what's going to look like in certain roles. Those of us that have been incorporating generative AI into our workflows, we wouldn't have anticipated some of the cuts in. I mean, there's already cuts in jobs and staff and certain processes that were just, I mean, immediately they were acted as soon as ChatGPT released. I think that when you start getting higher level up in the executive level, the CEO level, may not be as familiar with the technology, people who are hands-on experimenting with different use cases, but aware that there's going to be a major impact in, say, the next 1 to 3 years. There anticipating that maybe half of jobs are going to either be obsolete or they're going to shift into a type of job. And so starting to think about that, but I think that there's a gap in the training and there's a gap in organizations providing the training because it's so new and because it's evolving so quickly that it's really hard to stop. So what are your thoughts on some of those topics, David, in terms of like how do we as professionals in whatever career we might be in, if our organization is not supporting us in any type of training in that way, what should we be doing? What should we be looking for?
Yeah, so the training side, of course, is very important. And we're not here to give a pitch on training since we are a training company. But what you really have to be thinking about is there are always inflection points throughout your career where it becomes almost mandatory that you have to reskill. So I would look at this generative AI side, not just the AI side, because AI has been around for a very, very long time, but specifically this generative AI side as an inflection point that you have to take seriously. Now, I've seen all types of commentary and feedback from folks who think this is a flash in the pan, to folks who think that AI is going to take over the world. But what I think, Laura, you can talk about, what you did talk about, is you can look at the impact on marketers. So first and foremost, if you're a content marketer, there is a significant challenge associated with your specialty and what could be done on any type of the generative AI systems. I mean, yes, there is a difference between content that is generated from generative AI and that is written by a human being, but the two together can provide a lot of power and a lot of productivity, where a writer who could do 5 articles in a week now might be able to do 10 articles in a week, which could potentially reduce the position needed for a content marketer. So that's the first thing. That disruption means, as Laura said, there might be a need for having fewer professionals. At the same token, we have to understand in content marketing, the value is the relevance, the value is the detail, the value is the quality, and you're not going to necessarily get that in generative AI right off the bat. So if you're just going to pop generative AI articles up in your content marketing strategy, it ain't going to work. And you're not going to get the SEO ramifications that you are looking for, and you're not going to get the thought leader ramifications you're looking for. So just that positioning in marketing, which has been so hot for the last 3 or 4 years, can be significantly disrupted right now. As it relates to leadership, as Laura was talking about, this is the problem, is that leadership itself. So someone who manages people, someone who makes decisions associated with, how work gets done and what work gets done, isn't necessarily going to be as directly impacted. Now, they probably should be, because these tools can help you interview better. These tools can help you understand how to communicate with your teams better. These terms can help you provide a much deeper understanding of the world around you to make better decisions. But ultimately, they're not initially going to be impacted. So they might have a skewed view of how quickly this tool can replace a human function. And that's going to cause some disruption initially, when the push is going to be, now that these tools have been approved within our environment, we have the governance necessary. Now let's look at how we can increase our profits by reducing headcount and continue to increase productivity. But from a marketing professional standpoint, I think, Laura, you and I could probably do a 30-minute session just related to marketing professionals. Okay, if you're a designer, what's the pros and cons? If you're a web developer, what's the pros and cons? If you're a copy editor, what's the pros and cons? If you're a content marketer, what's the pros and cons? If you're an email marketing professional, what's the pros and cons? I mean, there's so many impacts there. Like the other day, I was able to write a 3-level drip campaign, emailing campaign for one of the folks I work with, very specific to their product, that made complete sense in like 7 minutes, 5 to 7 minutes. So email copywriting is an area that's going to be impacted. But, we're certainly a project professional company that has a lot of people in that space. So we'll probably want to talk about that a little more as well from a careering standpoint. But Laura, anything else you want to add on the marketing side or the leader side?
I think any job that has repetitive data-driven tasks needs to be paying attention and experimenting with how generative AI could help. Because whether it's customer service, accounting, there's a lot of operations roles, project management, certainly. There's just so many times that that follow the same 7 steps, over and over again. It's, maybe there's some variables in there. Like if I want to send an email campaign, there's probably 20 clicks that I have to do to set everything, versus a large language model where I could just chat and say, here's the I need you to do this type of tone, voice. Here's the objective, and just chat with it like you would chat with an assistant or an intern. And so that's coming. I mean, that's already here to a certain degree with the large language models. And what's coming down the pike are the AI agents that can actually come to the internet and perform tasks on our behalf, which is in the early stages of that. And we start to hear rumors about what's coming in the year or two ahead. And so that's when predictions of significant disruption, because in the short term right now we're all adapting to generative AI, but we're also trying to see, okay, well, that happened so quickly. The next level of innovation that's coming, where we have agents that are able to do these multi-tasked strategic initiatives on our behalf. And that's when we start a lot more impact on the white collar knowledge worker career space.
No doubt. And I think what we want to do is probably towards the latter part of the session to get very specific, and maybe even a little cookie cutter for those folks on some things that they can attack. But there is certainly a verge here, as we've been talking about, where someone who is interested in starting a business or looking for business opportunities can participate in. But you have to be very, very careful, because these technologies are disrupting one another. And in doing so, you might want to build a technology in one facet of this, only to find out that a technology that's currently existing will be able to do that and disrupt you in the business that you built in a very short period of time. So you have to be very cautious about not so much the skills you're trying to invest in, because we can talk about the core skills, but more about if you wanted to spend more specific time getting deep into a specific area or a specific tool, then you have to be cautious. So I have ChatGPT 4 up, and I just thought, for the heck of it, for our project professionals out there, I said, tell me how you think you will impact project professionals in the future. So let's see what it has to say here. So it's an AI language. So it says you can help your decision making, you can improve efficiency, you can support risk management better, you can become better at knowledge sharing and learning, communication and collaboration enhancements. We'll definitely talk about that. Look at that. Customized solution, predictive analytics. I mean, AI and predictive, the cultural and global insights, I think, is very, very important. That's a pretty powerful piece to be looking at. But as you can see, there's some interesting things here that the system itself says you should be thinking about as a project professional. So as I look at this, the first thing is enhanced decision making. So project professionals not only have to start learning about generative AI, but they have to start thinking more about how they make decisions. So we talk a lot about systems thinking. We talk a lot about complex problem solving. We talk a lot about complex critical thinking. I mean, these are three skills right there that are going to become very important, because you're not necessarily going to be stressed with the time needed to do some of the repetitive work, that you can now have information. They can think more deeply. You can ask these systems for more and more deep information. So do you know how to think from a systems perspective? How have you been doing with your critical thinking? What are some of the problem-solving techniques you use? How do you distinguish from and really analyze value from a 360 perspective? Next thing, as it relates to careering for project professionals, is we definitely have to look at improved efficiency. So project professionals from a careering standpoint need to look at the course tools that they utilize and start thinking about how those tools can be done in a generative AI environment or in a predictive analytic environment. Now, some of our tools like MS Project now has Copilot. Some of that stuff will start being done for us. And some of the other project tools that we use, Miro is one of the project tools we utilize that has embedded AI systems in it already. So certainly you're going to start seeing this. So how do you utilize it? Because you're going to be asked. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, Laura, wouldn't you agree that there's no doubt that in 2024, you're going to be asked how to use these tools to be more productive?
Well, here's a really simple example, and I'll be talking more about this on our AI day when we talk about generative AI for project professionals. My talk specifically about the visual communications and how you can improve efficiency. So think about all the times that you would like to send a very nice looking document, whether it's a one-page flyer, whether it's a nicely formatted email, whether it's a nicely laid out PowerPoint presentation. Think about how long that actually takes to do manually, to center everything just right, to boldface certain words, just right, highlight it, boldface, make the bullets, make the spacing, all those things take a lot of tedious time. But now some of these systems go ahead and spit out content for you nicely spaced in a way that you can easily read it, which is what we all want. We want visual communication that's easy to read, easy to scan, it doesn't waste our time with like thick, long chunks of text that we just can't consume, visually that well. That's an easy one that almost everyone can immediately start using if you need to. Like the other day, I was helping my daughter make her first resume, and we just used a chat GPT to put in her information, and then it came back with all of the resume formatting so that we could quickly make a PDF that had the appropriate headline size, the appropriate, spacing, and all of that, just from giving it a chat with all of her information. And I promise you, it probably took 5, maybe 10 minutes. I mean, think about how long it took us in the past to make a nicely formatted resume. I mean,
Oh my gosh, I hated
who
it.
else asked their mom? I know I asked my mom for help with it when I first had to do mine, and she would probably spend an hour trying to help
Yeah.
me make it very concise and, well formatted.
And so I love about this, again, that you're going to be asked as project professionals to get better at communicating and storytelling, especially when you're dealing with more complex and adaptive challenges, when you're trying to help people change beliefs, not just change behaviors. And video is worth millions of words. A picture is worth thousands of words, but a video is worth millions of words. And most of us shied away from it for how difficult it is to do. But it's powerfully easy to create video, record in Zoom, cut and paste in glossai.io, and away you go. It's absolutely amazing what you can do. But the key is you have to believe that that skill is going to enable you to be more productive and more successful. So from a careering standpoint in the project side, I think a lot that's going to happen initially is that project managers who build the skills in these areas quickest will be able to showcase their brand better and have better opportunities for career enhancement earlier on, and be tasked with probably doing projects related to this space or doing projects to integrate these technologies in their domain. Hey, I've been using this on projects. The PMO sees that. The PMO now makes me the director of generative AI for the PMO, and the way we go to build out the capabilities and the way I go from a career standpoint progression. So we kind of talked a little about some of the technologies and so forth. I really just want to get deep now for the last 6 or 7 minutes into the career side of things. So I talk about career insurance a lot. This is the idea that you have to protect yourself in your career in areas of disruption. You actually have to invest in your career. So this is going to be a bit of a career insurance concept as we talk about it. But the first step is do you believe that generative AI is going to make a significant change in the work you do and the work you might do in the future. So if you don't believe that, well, you're not going to care. You're not going to spend the time, you're not going to spend the energy, and you're not going to expend the effort. Or you might say, well, this isn't the world of like tool manufacturers and technology companies like Meta and Amazon. Crap, Amazon just rolled out a bunch of free generative AI classes here just recently. So that's the first step. You got to believe something in order to act on it. And, certainly Laura and I can give you lots and lots of different data points to get you to think about that. But if you do believe, now you have to look at this and you have to attack this from a continuous learning perspective. If you want to stay in your profession, so if you're a marketing professional that you want to stay in your profession, then you have to look at and research how do these tools impact marketing professionals. And Laura and I talked about this. Faster content, quicker design speed, faster time to market for design, both image and video design, better ideation, better start of ideation, easier way to create multiple email marketing campaigns, much easier way and faster way to actually create value propositions, to research value propositions if you're a product manager. So as I start seeing that as a marketing professional, I'd want to go ahead and start thinking, okay, what are the human side skills I need to accentuate as a marketing professional? And then how can I use these tools to then be able to show a significant increase in value? Because if I just know these tools and I don't know really what a value proposition is, I'm useless. If I don't understand the basics of video and image, you're not going to, as Laura, you pointed out to me multiple times, I mean, you have to have an understanding of video and image to use these tools appropriately. They're just going to come out as gobbledygook. So there are some skills you're going to have. Anything on the careering on the marketing side related to skills or thought process, Laura, before we jump into the project side?
Well, it makes me think about the value that the professionals who have, or, of our generation, Gen X and, baby boomers and those who grew up more in the analog times. And we had to learn the old fashioned way. We had to learn all, especially in the creative space, like think about something like an expert photographer who had to learn all of the technical terms for the lighting and the types of cameras and the different types of settings to get certain looks the way that they want. Well, all of that knowledge, it's not that it's obsolete now. It's actually needed in order to train people in this new way of doing things with AI, because you need to be able to speak that language in order to prompt to get the certain looks that you want. And so these types of knowledge bases, it's not that they're not needed and not valuable anymore. It's just that we're adding another layer of capability to it. So, and even if you don't believe that there's a big disruption coming to your career, you probably value your free time. So even if you can just make the things that you do on a regular basis take less time, to free up time for either yourself or your free time, or to free up time for you to think about your business, your career, your strategy. I think we can all agree that that would be a welcome change in our day-to-day.
Oh, absolutely. More free time is better in some ways. So you can think more deeply. You can relax more in the face of stress. I mean, that's the one thing. More free time can be utilized for relaxation to handle the stress that is caused by this rapid pace of change. On the project side, it's very similar, right? You don't have to lose the idea of how to write a user story, but the system can write a user story for you. You can just make the user story better. You don't have to lose the aspect of understanding how to come up with story points. The system can do story points for you, but you still have to understand the concept of story points and how do they work. You have to actually really truly understand what risk management is, because if you take an audio transcript of some of your project meetings, you put those together, put them into one of the engines, they can actually come up with a risk mitigation strategy for you based on the tone, the words that were being used by the different project team members. But you still have to understand what risk is. I mean, value, that's another thing that you have to have regardless. I mean, these systems don't understand values, so they're not going to be able to come out and say, I value this over I value that. or you should value this over you should value that, because that's some of the reason why the human touch and supervised AI is so important. So from a project professional standpoint, I would say the first step is talking to people who are using some of these technologies, attending conferences, going to chapter meetings, listen to presentations of folks that are using them, listen to vendor presentations about some of the use cases and how those use cases work. And then ultimately spending some time in practicing, because in this space, you have to practice. And that's where the skills of training systems and prompt engineering come into play. So taking a prompt engineering class would be a smart thing to do. Studying more about how to use your chat box to interact accordingly to get that box in and of itself to be learning is going to be particularly important. But ultimately, going into 2024, it's really going to be a situation where, okay, how are you going to start using this in your work environments to see if you can differentiate yourself and the value you create within your organization? And sooner rather than later, jobs will be posted where you have to understand how to use one of these tools. And not to mention, project professionals have an opportunity to do a lot of work around the governance of these systems within all environments. So there'll be projects around planning the governance, the security, the privacy issues, what architectures you're going to use. So you really need to be up on how these technologies work to participate in a governance, data protection, security conversation. Well, it looks like a little over 30 minutes. Laura, anything? I'll end it there on my babble. Anything else you want to say before we close it out?
I'll just invite everyone to check out our AI Day that's coming up. We have Generative AI Day for project professionals, and we have a special running through Cyber Monday. $26, you can get a ticket. So we'll post the link on this event in the comments. If you're interested or have questions, let us know. So that'll be a good opportunity to hear 8 different speakers talk about different aspects of using generative AI for project management related use cases. David, anything you want to mention?
No, that's great. Thank you all for participating. Happy Thanksgiving. If you celebrate Thanksgiving, I know this will be a recording, so all that'll do is tell you that we did this the day before Thanksgiving. Thank you all.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Great break.